Right, here we are. We are with the Munro MV1-A2 prototype electric vehicle. So zoom back a bit, George, you'll have a look. It's sort of got a familiar shape-ish, hasn't it? So it's clearly a utility 4x4 vehicle. We are going to have a look around this. So this is a full EV, a full electric vehicle. There is no fossil burning components to this car. There's no backup generator. We're going to have a look at the company, what this is based on. So Munro, the company, they've taken an ibex, and I'll put some pictures up. So ibex, named after a goat, a mountain goat, is a separate company that they've partnered with. And ibex have been making, I'd not heard of them before, but sort of kit car Defender-esque vehicles. And this vehicle uses Defender axles, so it appears to. So it's got we'll have a look underneath. It's got Defender front and rear axles, and it's also got a Defender gearbox. It's got lock-in center diff, and it's got one electric motor. Now the company, when they started, were considering converting Defenders to electric, and you can see why that was a good idea. And lots of people out there will think, my smoky old Defender, if I just electrified it, that would be brilliant. I could drive it and it would last me another 20 years, and that's good. And I'm sure we will see more and more of that. But to run a business doing that would be quite tricky, because you would actually turn yourself into a restoration company. You'd be welding up, replacing bulkheads, bolting panels on. And this company didn't want to become a restoration company. They wanted to be an electric vehicle company. And so what they've done is they've partnered with ibex, they've bought their galvanized chassis, and they've bought their body, and they've done some modifications to the chassis to suit bolting in batteries and other bits. And we'll have a look underneath, and they've got these wild wheel arches with the dramatic ground clearance. So what are they trying to achieve? So they're trying to produce an electric utility vehicle for the mining, the construction industry, these real heavy industries. This isn't really aimed at the end users, but there will be some end users, guys like you and me, that may say, well, that's okay, I want to be on board. Now, first of all, they are a small company, and this is a prototype. So if I'm a bit nitpicky, it's not intentional, it's just questioning some other things. But bear in mind, it is a prototype, it's a small team, and we 100% support them. So they haven't paid me to come here, they've just kindly invited me and given me a cup of tea. And also mention out is the Harness Flex. So Harness Flex are actually hosting this event on the outskirts of Birmingham today at their factory, and we're going to have a factory tour. And they have, one thing that the Munro team realised is the electrical ruggedness of the vehicle is important for safety and reliability. So we've got a high voltage DC batteries on here, and we need to have protection of those high voltage circuits for these to be safe. So let's have a look. So the door handle's familiar.
Well, first things first.
Oh yeah, the paint. It's we've got George with us today. This is the it's Raptor style paint. Now, when we looked at the Ineos, I've got to throw that in, because some people are going to be going, well, if you're looking at Defender alternatives, although Ineos deny it's a Defender alternative, but that's the private joke we got going. It was all very glitzy, wasn't it, with metallic shiny paint, and they're going, oh, this is like built on purpose, and we were like, well, it looks a bit blingy. So we were happy, George and I were happy to see immediately. Now, some things lack a little beauty, but they're functional. This is a door hinge.
And this sounds so good too.
I haven't done the door.
Close to it.
Oh, it's got a nice. So what have we got here now? I do need to. It does have a chassis, but I believe it's got some welded components. I will actually double check. I've talked quite a lot to the guys. Young team, really energetic and excited about what they're doing. Made in Scotland, so the team is based up in Scotland. So you can see this is, and I think even when we get past production, they're still going to have this very basic look. Now, one of the things they're saying is there's no point in reinventing the wheel. So they're buying the axles, they're tried and tested Land Rover reliability. So they're focusing all their research and development on the electrification. And it does have regenerative braking. Obviously, with an electric motor, we've only got 2 pedals, the stop and go. Other than that, everything else here is fairly basic. We've even got Land Rover Defender indicator switches here. Now, in terms of gears, obviously an electric vehicle doesn't have gears, but what it does have, I'm going to sit up in here. Now, they have driven this down from Scotland, so this is a fully functioning prototype vehicle. they have kept the transfer box, so there's low and high ratio. And I questioned them and I said, well, you know, with the huge torque you get at low revs with an electric motor, why do you need the high and low ratio? And they said, good question. They said, you don't really, but what it allows you to do is to operate the motor in its comfort zone, so you get a better duty cycle, more reliability. So if you are towing a big trailer up a long hill off-road, then that would be a time you could lose low ratio, and it will stop the motors getting hot, and it will work more efficiently in the world of electronic motor land. So that's the transmission. We talked a little about the axles, and we'll have a look at that. The batteries are underneath. The range is about 150 miles on road, but again, it's not really designed as an on-road vehicle. It can charge in about 30 minutes, so the charge time is not too much. Right, let's have a look. We got any more questions for the inside, George? It's fairly, I mean, we've got Raptor paint on the inside. Oh, look, we've got a fluffy headlining. We've got some exposed bolts. It's very much utility, again, aimed at mining, construction. There is no electronics, they assure me, below waist level. So this is, we've got a bit of electronics here on the brake switch. There's one thing I was questioning. One thing I like is the ABS on modern cars is really good, because when you get a wheel spinning, it locks the power to that wheel, so all the power goes to one of the other wheels. But I noticed looking underneath, the ABS sensors aren't linked up, and that's one thing that is still in development, how they can use the ABS, because it's a real handy tool, I think. And it's always a fine line, because a lot of people are going, no, keep it basic, you know, keep it till we know what works. Let's not overcomplicate things, because we know what happens when you overcomplicate things, reliability, and you've got ECUs everywhere. But then again, if you've got a bit of technology like ABS as well proven on every car, why would you not have it and use it?
Got a cool grab handle over there for the passenger.
Got a little grab handles, everything. Look, all these. But again, they've just used standard components off the shelf to construct a car. They haven't gone.
No English writing.
It's center diff lock, and look, they've called it diff, not differential. But there again, that's a little private joke me and Georgia got going, isn't it? So there we go. We've got seat sliders, we've got comfy seats, door cards, all pretty.
No electric, but you don't need electric windows.
You don't need
it's
electric
perfect.
and this is a good thing. When we look at the Tesla when you build an electric vehicle, you've got to be really careful. Any form of electric waste, be it heating or infotainment systems, is just sucking up your range. And I've seen some modern vehicles with some pretty sloppy energy consumption, and you can't have that on an electric vehicle. It's fine on a petrol car, but on an EV, and one thing that Tesla do well is, you know, the heating, they've got the octa valve, they've got all these other ways of saving that electricity to use it to propel you, not to use it wastefully on heating and infotainment. They've really cut down on that, and they also are aware of that. So let's get out and look a bit more as I waffle. So the design is modular. They can also make this into a pickup. So you can see here it's naturally already like pickup-esque. So they've designed that, and again they've worked with Ibex. Munro's main focus at the moment is on the electrification. I did debate. I'm quite a big fan of independence and suspension. I love the suspension on our new Defender, and the air suspension, it goes up. I think it's awesome, and it's taken us awesome places, hasn't it, George? Yeah. Without even like missing a beat, and then we're back on the motorway, and it's brilliant. Yeah. This is much more, I mean, every suspension is a compromise, but this one is definitely weighted at the ruggedness angle and the off-road capability. So you're going to have a charge point. One cool thing, this charge point actually isn't functional. We busted them out on that. We thought they had wireless charging because the wires, but they said actually they started with it here, but they've had a cool idea. They're going to put it on the front, and I said, front, rear, what's the difference? Well, if you're towing, if you're on a farm and you've got a charge point, if you've got a trailer on the back, you couldn't reverse up to the charge point on the side of your building. But if you've got it, you could just drive up forwards to it, and so they're going to put the charger at the front, which actually I think is a good idea, because if you spin around here, George, again, I'm not trying to pull this car apart, but let's be fair, you know, they need to look at things like all the mud and stones off this rear wheel are getting exposed onto these charging things and could damage the charging. But that's again why they've gone to harness flex, to get that superior protection. Right, full width rear door, you can get a pallet in, which you can't in our Defender. Okay, and then we've got standard, I mean, the door hasn't even got a stay on it. you know, and we've got plywood and there's bits and pieces. You know, I mean, they've obviously got little bits, you know, that even though it's a prototype, you can put a dome nut on here and it would look better and it wouldn't cost anything. So, but their focus so far has been on getting the technology right, and that's fine. It'll take a 1 ton payload. They've got these lashing straps and all that there. They've actually got the 5 seats in there, so it's a pretty efficient use of space. One thing with the solid axles, yeah, they're proven, yeah, they're reliable, and actually they're more efficient at transmitting power, because constant velocity angle joints, you lose a lot of power in that angle. So there are some benefits with that. But yeah, you could see here the ABS sensor is not connected. So, but let's have a look underneath. Let's have a look at the locations of the batteries, and let's have a look also under the bonnet, shall we?
Yeah.
Right, the main body panels are aluminium. So these panels are aluminium, and I believe they're bonded and riveted onto the steel subframe in places. Right, let's have a look underneath the middle. So the main battery is here, and you can see they've got harness flex that's sponsoring it. Now, I did question the location of the battery because it could restrict the breakover angle, but they said their breakover angle is still market leading, and they are going to make some tweaks. You know, and they pointed out, they've been quite honest. They said, look, you know, we've built a prototype. Things here, like where we've got these cables coming down, they're changing this so the cables are going to go up. And they're also modifying the chassis so that they can get the batteries tucked up a little more. So this is a prototype, it is a work in progress, and they're looking, as they're doing it, at how they can improve things. Right, so there's the main battery there. Right, let's have a look under the bonnet. 0 to 60 at about 5 seconds, because that's not published. The other thing is weight. So whenever you've got an electric vehicle, you're fighting wasting electricity with infotainment and all that. They've sorted that. Weight. Now I said, this is heavy. You've got a good big galvanized chassis on here. It's going to kill the weight. And they said, guess the weight. So I said, and I wasn't far off. I said between 2 and 2.5 tons. It's 2,150 kilograms, approximately, depending on the spec, is the weight of this vehicle, which puts it about the same as my Defender. So it's not too bad. But again, it hasn't got a lot of electronics and all the other stuff inside. Right, let's see if we can get the bonnet open. So the bonnet is GRP at the moment, and they did say they are working on updating the design of the front. So here we've got the main control unit. So this, I think, is going to house the inverter. This isn't the battery, and you can probably see from where you are, George, can you see the original gearbox at the back there, the sort of dull grey aluminium, and then bolted onto the front of that as we move forward of the vehicle, you've got that shiny cylinder, which is the motor. So there is a 3-phase electric AC motor there. So one key component of an electric vehicle is the battery's a DC direct current, and you need to convert that to AC to drive the 3-phase electric motors, which is the same on pretty much all electric cars. And I believe this is done in here. So this is where the inverter and the control circuitry is going to be. So we've just got one motor driving, and I said, wow, Rivian, they got 4 motors. They're 4 times better than you guys. And they said, well, no, there are a lot of disadvantages with 4 motors, and one of the big ones they said that I hadn't thought about is if you're losing traction on 3 wheels, which could easily happen, then you've got one motor that's got to push the whole vehicle along. So your other 3 are not helping, whereas with this, the motor, you can send that motor's power through to 1 wheel. So you've got the full power to 1 wheel, or 2 wheels, or 3 wheels, or 4 wheels. So they said there are, and obviously in terms of cost and complexity, 1 motor wins out. So I did buy into it. They have thought about it. They did have an answer to a lot of my awkward questions. So there we go. So there's and this is all the harness flex. So they've worked clearly, and they've got really nice flexes, and look, they've got rubber stops on the end of everything. So they've really gone to town on getting the electrical reliability. And this is all the harness flex stuff here. A little plug for harness flex, because they gave us a cup of tea and some. They got sticky buns over there as well, haven't they, John?
Yeah.
Now, one thing I learned on my course, my level 2 EV technology course, was that brakes are really complicated on an electric vehicle, because when you press the brake, you don't want the hydraulics to start pressing on the pads. What you want it to do is to start driving the regeneration, so that the power, the kinetic energy you've got driving along, the motor turns into a generator and generates AC, and then so the braking is, and they said they've still got some work to do on that to get the brake system into fully regenerative mode. So they're really, it's not as easy as just slapping an electric motor where an engine was. There's a lot of control, and the guys here, they've got all their own software for how the vehicle is propelled and braked. They're buying the motors from somewhere, but they're actually written all their own software. And one of the guys we're talking to has been a software engineer for 15 years, and that's his background. And that's what we're seeing more now in the EV world, is software is the key to efficiency. You can see the massive suspension. Just you go there, George, you can see the massive suspension travel. You've got the galvanized, and look at the thick galvanized chassis. And one thing they are looking for is sustainability and ease of repair. So they're trying to keep everything basic so it can be repaired easily. It is rugged, and that sort of leads to sustainability. You know, if this vehicle can stay on the road for 10 years, then that's a good thing. Right, so the price of this is going to be about 63,000 plus VAT, so we're going to be pushing 80,000. Now, if you compare that to a Rivian, the Rivian's going to be cheaper than that when it gets here. I think it's going to be about £60,000, the Rivian. So it's going to be a hard sell. You're going to want at £80,000. You're really going to want to need this off-road capability. Right, it sounds like the guys are trying to take us on a factory tour now. So we might pop back in a minute and wrap up with some. Top speed was about 80, so it's geared for torque, not speed. So obviously you're not going to win any races, but still the 0 to 60 of 5 seconds, it's still going to be quick enough to drive compared to a normal Defender anyway. We are now going on the Harness Flex factory tour, which I actually love. My background's in manufacturing. Check out this, look, there with a zip. I've normally got Velcro, this is flash. So we're going to go and have a check round. We'll see what we can film. Hopefully we can film inside. We'll have a look.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, that one's running. The string goes into it, and the string is part of it's woven in. Right, we've had a quick factory tour. It was quite loud in there, so we didn't do a lot of filming, but it was quite interesting. They were taking the raw granules and then they were injecting it into a tube, and then it was forming the corrugation on it, and it was fascinating, wasn't it, George?
Yeah.
And we had a look at the warehousing and everything. It's a pretty impressive outfit they've got in there making the Harness Flex stuff. But we've just come back out, the sun's out, we've had a sticky bun, we're all charged up. So one thing I was looking at, now I know it's only a prototype, but they've got halogen headlights bulbs. You can see there the bulbs inside. And again, it's one of those things, if you're going to make an electric vehicle, you've got to really, every bit of electricity is you've got to conserve it. So I'd be happier to see some proper LED headlight modules, and you can get these same modules. I've seen these same modules in LED, so I'd be happy to see that. We're going to have a look. They've got the laser cut grille there. Now, because this isn't going to be a fully homologated vehicle, this isn't a full, there is special laws in the UK where you can get small volume type approval, and the small manufacturers don't have to meet the stringent things that you have to meet as a mass manufacturer in terms of front impact crash protection, because you can see here you haven't got much pedestrian friendly.
Oh wow, that is
a girder. So and this is a steel or an alley plate. So they are only planning on making it in small volume production. If they're going to make it into a more mainstream vehicle, they're going to have to change a lot of the design, front impact protection, and that will probably limit them. So they're probably going to try and stay within the remit of the small volume producer. Let's have a look at the front suspension again then, George. So again, you can see the galvanized chassis, the front struts, you've got the long location rods here, and then you've got the standard diffs and the standard swivel joints. They've got some adjustable shock absorbers on here so they can vary the damping settings. So a couple of things that were interesting. Here you've got this sort of what I would say is sound deadening or heat reflection. So I'm not sure how hot the inverter and control circuits get. If it was getting hot, I'd expect to see more perhaps fins or heat sink, but they obviously tried to protect that. And also on the bulkhead, now you've got a lot of this sort of sound deadening, heat reflected, which I could understand for an engine, but one advantage should be of this vehicle, it should be particularly quiet. You haven't got the noise of the of the engine rotating. So it'd be interesting to do a road test at some point, wouldn't it, George, and see what the actual road noise is like. I mean, obviously you're going to have all the wind noise because of the shape and the structure of it.
Overall impressions?
Right, good question, George. I really support, and I think we should all do, small businesses trying to change the way things done, trying to fill a gap in the market, trying to innovate and produce new things, because it gives us all more choice and it stimulates innovation and development of vehicles. So I 100% support what the guys are going to do. I think they're after a very niche market. They know what they're after. It'd be interesting to see how it goes. Now, they've clearly got some investment. They haven't gone too much into their financials, and those of you into financial stuff, but they've clearly got some investment. They've got some key guys coming on, and I expect this is perhaps a development platform for what's to come later. So I think it's more a question of watch this space. Let's see what they do with this vehicle. Let's prove it on this vehicle, and then I'm sure we'll see the design evolve to become more production friendly, more mainstream over time. So very much, let's keep an eye on Munro vehicles. I'll put the links to their websites, and hopefully we'll get invited for a test drive, or maybe we could take our Defender out and this out and put them up against some challenges. Maybe try and do the Strata Florida, see if they're up for a Strata Florida adventure. And George is driving. George will be in the Suzuki Jimny. See if it can, yeah, love the Jimny. Right, that's it for the day. I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks to Elliot at Harness Flex who invited us along to this event. Thanks to the guys at Munro for showing us around and explaining, and let's see where we go. Watch this space.